It's about the most consequential. No force in history altered the map of the world more swiftly or decisively than the Mongols. From the mountain passes of China to the river estuaries of Vietnam, their armies pioneered a revolutionary synthesis of speed, signals, engineering, and law that changed how wars were fought. Our criteria for this list are simple: the strategic impact of the engagement, the clarity of its record in historical sources, and how well each battle reveals a core tenet of the Mongol method, or, just as importantly, its ultimate limits. The dates and numbers you'll hear are approximations. Medieval chronicles, often written by the defeated, rarely agreed. For each event, we'll explore who fought, what happened, and why it irrevocably mattered, including key defeats like Jalut and Bach that defined the ceiling of Mongol power. We will move in strict chronology, starting where the Mongol storm first broke from the steppe, at the Great Wall's northern gates, Yehuling 1211, where a barrier became a deadly funnel. Number 1. The Battle of Yehuling Pass, 1211. The adversary was the powerful Jurchen Jin dynasty. Their large frontier army, possibly numbering in the hundreds of thousands, was deployed to block the narrow forested passes guarding the North China Plain. The Jin commander, confident in his superior numbers and heavy infantry, believed the terrain would force a head-on battle, neutralizing the famed Mongol mobility. He profoundly misunderstood his enemy. Under Genghis Khan's personal command, the Mongols staged loud, obvious feints against the main gates, fixing the Jin's entire attention and reinforcing their commander's assumptions. But this was a classic deception. While the Jin army watched the spectacle, elite, lightly armored Mongol wings used lesser-known ridges and goat paths, terrain the Jin considered impassable, to stealthily move behind the long, stretched-out Jin marching column. On a coordinated signal of flags and drums, they struck the vanguard and rear simultaneously. The pass, intended as a defense, became an inescapable kill pocket. The Jin army, unable to maneuver or reform, was shattered from both ends. This battle was a masterclass in multi-axis maneuver, turning an enemy's strength into a fatal weakness. It annihilated the Jin's main field army and opened the road to their capital, Zhongdu. Number 2. The Siege of Zhongdu, 1213 to 1215. Having destroyed the Jin field army, Genghis faced a far greater challenge. Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, one of the largest and most heavily fortified cities in the world. For a nomadic steppe army, this should have been an impossible task. But the Mongols were masters of assimilation. Using a vast core of captured Khitan and Chinese engineers who knew the city's weaknesses intimately, the Mongols laid a methodical and terrifying siege. Morale inside the city was already crippled as the Jin emperor had cowardly fled, leaving his capital to its fate. The Mongols enacted a complete ring siege, cutting off all food and supplies. Teams of miners dug tunnels to collapse entire sections of the massive walls from below, while a battery of powerful traction trebuchets systematically pounded the defensive towers into rubble. When the starved city finally capitulated in 1215, the Mongols enacted a crucial imperial policy. Instead of just raiding, they conducted a regulated looting and, more importantly, registered all artisans, engineers, and administrators for imperial use. This siege proved a steppe army could conduct sustained, complex siegecraft and govern a captured capital to fuel its future conquests. Number 3. The Conquest of Bukhara and Samarkand, 1220. With the lessons of China absorbed, the Mongol war machine turned west to the wealthy Khwarazmian Empire. After the Shah foolishly provoked a war by executing Mongol envoys, Genghis unleashed a full-scale, multi-pronged invasion. The Shah's strategy was to distribute his forces, waiting behind the supposedly impregnable walls of his great oasis cities. This was a fatal error. While one Mongol army pinned the main Khwarazmian force at the border, Genghis Khan took an elite column and did the unthinkable. He led them on a grueling, hundreds-mile march through the supposedly impassable Kizilkum Desert. He emerged deep in the enemy heartland, appearing before the gates of Bukhara as if from nowhere. The psychological shock was immense. The city's garrison attempted to flee and was annihilated, forcing a swift surrender. The glorious capital, Samarkand, followed a similar pattern. The Mongols would encircle the city, defeat any relief forces, offer terms, then unleash overwhelming force. After the battle, the general populace was broadly spared, while skilled workers were cataloged and redistributed across the empire. This campaign codified the Mongol method of strategic encirclement and post-capture administration, harvesting human capital as much as territory. Number 4, the Battle of the Kalka River, 1223. As the main army secured Central Asia, a reconnaissance force of 20,000 men under the brilliant generals Subutai and Jebi rode west. On the grasslands of modern-day Ukraine, they met a large disunited coalition of Russia's principalities and their Cuman allies. The Russia's princes, bickering over command and seeing the relatively small Mongol force, were arrogant and eager for glory. What followed was one of military history's most masterful deceptions. For 9 days, the Mongols executed a perfect feigned retreat. This was a disciplined, fighting withdrawal designed to exploit their enemies' impatience. The faster Ruses and Cuman vanguards surged ahead, stretching the coalition's cohesion to the breaking point. After drawing them hundreds of kilometers from their main army, Subutai stopped on pre-selected ground across the Kalka River. As the overextended vanguard charged, the Mongol wings wheeled with chilling precision, crushing them in a devastating envelopment. Mongol screening forces then rode back to ambush and destroy the rest of the coalition's armies, which were still straggling to the battlefield. This was Europe's first terrifying exposure to Mongol pace control, large-scale deception, and their silent, deadly battlefield signals. Number 5, the Battle of Mohi, April 11, 1241. Nearly 2 decades later, the Mongols returned to Europe in force. Under the command of Batu Khan and the tactical genius of the aging Subutai, their primary target was the Kingdom of Hungary. King Bela IV had assembled a large, confident army in a fortified wagon lager on the western bank of the Sajo River, with the only nearby bridge heavily guarded. Subutai, the unparalleled master of the art of war, launched a fierce, day-long assault on the main bridge to fix the Hungarians' entire attention. But under the cover of night and the constant noise of battle, he had his engineers build a secret pontoon bridge downstream. At dawn, a massive Mongol flanking force that had crossed in the dark slammed into the camp's rear, just as the frontal assault on the bridge renewed. It was a classic, perfectly timed two-jaw envelopment. The Hungarian Royal Army was destroyed. In a final, cruel act of psychological warfare, the Mongols left a deliberate gap in their encirclement, funneling the fleeing, panicked soldiers into a pre-selected swampy killing ground where horse archers picked them off for 2 days. Mohi was the pinnacle of Mongol operational art in Europe, a perfect blend of engineering, timing, and terror. Number 6, the Battle of Legnica, April 9, 1241. Just 2 days before the masterstroke at Mohi, a separate Mongol wing under Baidar, Khadan, and Orda engaged a coalition of Polish and German forces led by Henry the Pious. This was not a battle of conquest, it was a deliberate and brilliant fixing operation. Its sole purpose was to engage and destroy this northern army to keep it from reinforcing the main Hungarian force. On a chaotic battlefield of broken fields, the eager and heavily armored European knights were lured out of their disciplined formations by Mongol skirmisher screens and repeated staged withdrawals. The Mongols then used smoke pots to obscure the field, creating widespread confusion and breaking the knights' command structure. With the European cavalry separated and effectively blind, the Mongol wings enveloped their flanks, using their powerful composite bows to target the less armored horses, bringing the knights crashing down. They specifically targeted the commanders. Henry was killed and his army broken. Legnica was a strategic sacrifice, ensuring that Subutai could smash King Bela's army without any threat of interference. Number 7, the Siege of Baghdad, February 1258. For 500 years, Baghdad was the cultural and spiritual heart of the Islamic world, the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate. Hulagu Khan, grandson of Chinggis, brought the full might of the empire's mature siegecraft against it. His army was a cosmopolitan force, featuring a massive Sino-Persian engineer train with the world's most advanced siege technology. The key to the siege was total control of the Tigris River. Mongol forces encircled the city on both banks, using pontoon bridges to shuttle their massive trebuchets and siege engines to attack any point on the walls at will. In a brilliant feat of military engineering, they seized control of the dikes upstream, denying the city its crucial water mills. The walls were systematically breached and the city capitulated. A brutal sack followed. The great libraries, including the legendary House of Wisdom, were destroyed, a devastating blow to centuries of human knowledge. The Caliph himself was executed. The siege demonstrated river control as a decisive siege weapon and completely reset Near Eastern politics under the new Mongol Ilkhanate. Number 8. Ayin Jalut, the Spring of Goliath, September 3, 1260. The Mongol advance had seemed an unstoppable force of nature, but a succession crisis in the Mongol heartland forced Yehuling to withdraw the bulk of his army from Syria, leaving a smaller but still formidable vanguard under his trusted general, Kitbuka. This force was met by a determined Mamluk army led by Sultan Kutuz and his brilliant field commander, Baybars. Critically, the Mamluks were themselves of Turkic steppe origin. They were slave soldiers who knew the Mongol way of war because it was also their own heritage. In a rolling valley in Galilee, Baybars used a classic Mongol tactic against them. He led a small vanguard to probe and then feign a retreat, baiting the overconfident Kitbuka into pursuing him onto ground chosen specifically for an ambush. When Kitbuka committed his entire force in a headlong charge, the main Mamluk army, hidden in the surrounding hills, crashed into his flanks. The Mongol formation, caught in a perfectly executed trap, collapsed. For the first time, a major Mongol field army had been decisively defeated. Ayin Jalut shattered the Mongol aura of invincibility and fixed the westernmost limit of their empire. Number 9. The Siege of Xiangyang Fancheng, 1268 to 1273. Kublai Khan's final great objective was the conquest of the wealthy and resilient southern Song dynasty. The gateway to the Song heartland was the pair of twin fortresses, Xiangyang and Fancheng, which guarded the Han River, a critical artery leading to the Yangtze. What followed was one of world history's longest and most technologically significant sieges, lasting 5 grueling years. The campaign was a masterclass in blockade warfare, featuring river booms and the relentless interdiction of relief convoys. But the decisive moment came with the deployment of a new weapon. Using the empire's vast network, Kublai Khan brought in Persian engineers who constructed powerful counterweight trebuchets. These massive engines could hurl projectiles weighing over 100 kilograms, shattering fortifications that had stood for centuries. Fancheng fell first. Xiangyang, its twin, surrendered soon after. With the door into the Yangtze heartland finally battered open, the entire military position of the southern Song dynasty collapsed. Heavy artillery and total river control had decided the fate of China's core theater. Number 10. A tale of 2 naval battles. First, the Yuan victory at Yamen, 1279. The last Song loyalists, protecting their child emperor, chained their massive fleet together into a static floating wall. The Yuan admiral, Zhang Hongfan, exploited this immobility, launching fire ships and then swarming the trapped Song vessels. The chains made the fleet a floating prison, preventing any escape. The Song dynasty was extinguished in the chaos. But our final battle reveals the limits of Mongol power. Bach Zhang, April 9, 1288. The Vietnamese general Tran Hung Yao faced a massive Yuan riverine fleet in a tidal estuary. He lured the Yuan ships upriver at high tide, over a battleground his men had prepared, with submerged iron-tipped wooden stakes. As the tide fell, the huge Yuan hulls were impaled and trapped. Vietnamese shore troops in light, maneuverable craft then attacked the helpless vessels. The Yuan fleet was annihilated. It was a perfect asymmetric victory, where local knowledge of terrain and tides defeated raw power, ending serious Mongol attempts to subdue Jai Viet. Across these engagements, a clear pattern emerges. Reconnaissance and intelligence set the stage. A sophisticated system of flags and drums kept dispersed armies operating on a single clock. Engineering, from mines and pontoon bridges to Persian trebuchets, turned the terrain itself into a weapon. And after victory, a system of administration kept the machine supplied. And yet the limits are just as instructive. At Ayin Jalut, a disciplined opponent on chosen ground broke the Mongol surge. At Bach Zhang, the sea itself wrote a different set of rules. Add the endless succession crises, vast distances, and disease, and you see why momentum didn't become permanence. The legacy is a dual one, of brutal conquest, but also of the Pax Mongolica, which created an unprecedented connectivity across Eurasia. Their story is a stark reminder that history isn't just who won, it's how they won and where and why they couldn't.
Please subscribe and look for more documentaries at Swords and Shadows.